Good morning, everybody. Welcome to EXSIN Live. We are back after a crazy week last week. We got overwhelmed, and we apologize for not being here, but life happens.
Life does happen. Sometimes unfortunate things happen with clients of ours that we have to address.
That's a fact. Today, we're going to go on a positive note. I think it's time to talk about leadership and how to positively influence your team. We have a lot of companies struggling to keep employees. We have a lot of companies that are dealing with challenges out there. And there are some things that you can put in your toolkit as a leader to do a better job with your team.
Yeah, I mean, being a leader it's not complicated. It's just hard, right? I mean, I think it's easy to know what you should do. It's hard to execute.
That's 100%. That's 100% true. And the first thing, so these tips are from Lolly Daskell, one of my favorite leadership authors. She writes all the time for Forbes. Thank you, Lolly, for allowing us to use these. But the first thing she says, it's the most important one. If you're a leader, you're going to screw up.
Yep.
Learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, learn from your mistakes. It's important. I love her the very first words out of her mouth is, no one is perfect.
No one is perfect.
I would add, so quit acting like you are. I mean, so it's
fair.
It's and I think that's where people get in trouble. You know, we spend so much energy trying to act like we know everything, trying to act like we never make mistakes, that we forget that everybody knows that everybody doesn't know everything and everybody makes mistakes. And so not only are you not developing yourself and helping your people, you look like a fool because they know. So stop it, to quote the great philosopher Bob Newhart.
Yeah, humility is important. The second one, and this is pretty powerful too, because this happens in every organization. It's handle the politics.
Yeah, and the best way to handle politics, be really transparent, direct, and honest. You know, no secrets, no what I call junior high games. Just be direct. This is what we're dealing with. This is how we're going to handle it. You know, be honest. You know, too many times we worked with a lot of different clients over the years. Too many times they multiply the problem because they don't simply admit there's a problem and get input from their team so that they can collectively come up with a solution to the problem.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, but I will also add this, the rumor mill, right?
Yeah.
Kill rumors and address them immediately. And anybody that's spreading rumors, have a conversation with them, is going to ask them where they heard that and why they're saying that. I've watched untruths destroy too many organizations because everybody let it go, as opposed to the leader stepping up going, this is not true, this is what's happening, knock it off.
Yeah, and on the other side, we've seen great examples of people that have done it correctly, right? That own it, that deal with it, that don't ignore it. Ignoring problems doesn't make the problem go away. It just it just multiplies the problem.
It's like a zit that you don't take care of.
Yeah, well, how to use the less gross description.
Finally, it explodes.
Yeah, how to use the less gross description, but that works.
Pretty powerful, though.
I see what you did.
I want the visual there. So. Yeah. The next thing is, hey, brag about your team.
Yeah, let them know when they're doing things right. Give them the credit that they've earned, that they deserve. You know, if you want to destroy the culture and lose all credibility as a leader, take credit for something that's not yours. That'll immediately do it. That's happened to me in the past. You just walk out of the room going, holy crap, I told them, I went over this with them 2 days ago, and now they're acting like I don't exist. You know, so make sure that you're giving the credit to the people that have earned it and deserve it. Recognize their successes and make them feel appreciated, because you should appreciate them.
Let them own their wins.
Absolutely.
Great leaders ask great questions.
Yeah, you got to create an environment where you give people permission to ask questions. It's a cliche, right? There's no such thing as a dumb question. And then what do some people do? They act like every question somebody asks is dumb. You know, so just stop it. Don't do that. You know, be adults. Give each other permission to speak freely. Give each other permission to, because that's where creativeness and solutions come from. It's usually not that somebody in the room has the answer right away. It's usually through a process where you go, well, what about this? No, that won't. Well, but what if we tweak, you know, and you work through it, and that's usually where great solutions come from.
Yeah, I'm going to add something to that. Great leaders listen.
Yeah.
They do less talking and more listening, and they ask those hard questions for the team to challenge a team and make them grow stronger. The next one, and this is really important, people know they're not stupid. Always be fair.
Yeah, be fair. Have the same standards for everybody. Have the same expectations for everybody. There's a baseline for everything, right? What we call minimum expectations, right? Minimum standards. The word minimums attached to them for a reason. We hope you exceed this, but as a baseline, this is the absolute minimum we expect from everybody in this organization. That applies to customer service, it applies to sales, it applies to your personal behavior, it applies to dress, it applies to so many different things. But have those baseline minimums and always be fair in how you distribute those expectations throughout the organization.
The next one, and this is really important to Phil and I both, probably our number one, is lead with character. And I'll tell you, it's so important to me that there's a quote that's been burned in my skull since 7th grade. I will not lie, steal, or cheat, nor tolerate among me anyone who does. Furthermore, I resolve to do my duty and live honorably, so help me God. Look, we're going to make mistakes, own your mistakes, but your character and the way you behave around your team is noticeable.
Yeah.
And character applies to your professional life as well as your personal life.
Well, in a leadership role, you don't get the you don't get the luxury of saying, well, it's 5 o'clock, I can go be a heathen now until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And we've walked this out with clients, unfortunately, where people have made bad decisions and have had to own that. We've had clients, to be quite frank, that we fired, that when they made the mistakes, they didn't own it, and tried to continue down that path of being non-transparent and being secretive and tried to cover things up and tried to hide it. Everything's always exposed. Everything's always brought out into the light. So own it, be it, lead with character every day of your life. Much to your saying, I love the saying, make decisions like everybody's watching when nobody is. Just really, because in your gut when what you're doing is right or wrong. You know it. Now, also, there's not a person alive that's ever been in a leadership role that hasn't wrestled with decisions.
100%.
And thought through it and went through it. But that's where that character, that just your values, your principles, that's where that has to really come through. And those are muscles, right? You got to learn those just like anything else.
The next one is trust and empower your team. Let your team make decisions. Encourage them to step out of their comfort zone and do great things for your organization.
Yeah, if you don't trust them, that means you got to allow them to make mistakes along the way. You got to create a culture where folks aren't crucified if they make a mistake. You got to trust them to go walk it out. You got to support them, give them the tools they need, give them the support they need to be successful. And if it doesn't happen, if there's a slip up along the way, then you use that as a training and a learning opportunity to come in as a leader and say, let's walk through this, but allow them to go out and do their job.
Value them. How do you value your team? You learn about their personal lives. You understand their personal goals and ambitions, and you help them visibly reach those personal goals. We make every client that we work with on the sales side do a vision sheet. Where do you want to be?
Yeah.
So we understand what motivates them.
Yeah, if you don't know why somebody's doing what they're doing, because we can lump things in and make it very generic, right? We can say, well, they work because they got to have money to pay their bills. Okay, let's dig a little deeper than that. What's their why? I think Simon, I think that's the greatest question in business ever. Why do you do this? What's your why? You got to understand that. You got to value them, as Dave said. You've got to understand that these are human beings. Everybody's not the same. Some people, I think people out there think in business, everybody's aspiring to be the leader. That's not true. There's a lot of incredibly talented, incredibly gifted people that have no desire to be in a leadership role for their own set of reasons, and that's okay.
We work with somebody right now who is an amazing leader, an informal leader, but they don't want to lead.
Very capable of running the organization.
100%. Amazing person.
Has no desire to do it. That's okay. That doesn't mean they're not committed. That doesn't mean they don't care. There's a plethora of reasons why people make those decisions.
Next one's be inclusive. Look, this is getting beat to death in the world. If you don't live by the do unto others as they do unto you and treat people nice, then shame on you, right? And the next one is support them. And this is important because what does support look like? Support is helping them reach their goals. Support is being there when they need you. Support is helping them solve problems when they need help.
Yeah.
Right? Support is giving the tools and training they need to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, and just being a human being, being a good human being, I mean, we should want to lift each other up. Dave and I do this subconsciously now. We don't even have to, at this point in our relationship, we don't even have to think about it. There's times when maybe one of us needs more and than what we're used or that we usually need. That's part of being a human being. We all go through things, right? We all have stuff that we have to unpack, whether it's personal or professional. Maybe if you're on a sales team, maybe you're not hitting your sales quotas consistently. Maybe you're not making the income you need, which usually goes with not hitting your sales quotas consistently, right? So you get down on yourself. You start feeling like you're less than. You start feeling like you're not capable. 99% of the time, that's not the reason, okay? So you got to spend the time to really support them through honest communication. You got to really care about these people to be a good leader. You can't fake caring. You can't. People see through it. You either do or you don't, right? And then the big one we talked about earlier, your actions, Dave, are really going to decide, do you support them? Yep. That's what's really going to decide this.
The next one is encourage candor. This goes back to transparency and trust. Look, if you can't shoot straight and your team can't shoot straight with you, then you got a problem.
It's a real problem, and we're walking it out with a client right now in a situation. Well, actually, two clients in two very different situations, but life's hard and people are hard, and you can't lose sight of those two things. You really can't lose sight of the fact that people are hard. And what I mean by that is we have stuff like we just talked about that happens in your life. Some of it's self-inflicted, or you're just a bonehead.
It's a fact.
Some of it's outside of your control. But regardless of why or how they got there, there's still human beings attached to it. And you got to make sure that you're really just, you got to make sure that you care about them at the end of the day. And you got to make sure that you're present.
Well, and I'm going to add this to this. Encourage candor while showing grace.
Yeah, you got to show grace. I mean, and grace is hard to give sometimes.
It is.
Woo! I've been given grace in my life when I absolutely did not deserve it. Okay? And I think we all need to take a hard look at ourselves and realize that we've all been in those situations. There's nobody exempt from having challenges. There's nobody exempt from messing up. There's nobody exempt from making mistakes. It's how do you handle those situations when they occur? That's going to dictate the outcome.
Yeah, and I think the second to last one is one of our favorite clients. They do this on a regular basis. That's invest in them.
Yeah.
Give them the tools and training they need to be successful and hold them accountable to that training and those tools that you give them.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, Red River Roofing.
Yep,
I'm just going to say it. Steve and Dana Collier do as good of a job of any leaders and owners that I've ever seen. I'd throw Matthew Parks in that category as well that works at Red River. They do a tremendous job of equipping their employees with tools, resources, development. They truly invest in their team. That's a big deal. That's a big, big deal. If companies would do 10% of what they do, their bottom line would go way up.
100%.
I mean, it's amazing. So I'm going to give a shout out to our friends at Red River because those people are doing it right.
Steve, I hope you're having fun in your little vacation this week in New Mexico. You've earned it.
Yeah, he has.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next one and the last one is lead from within. Develop leaders in your organization, informal leaders that are helping you solve your company's problems.
Well, I mean, if you don't, I'm a big believer in bottom-up management and bottom-up leadership. And what I mean by that is you want to get the folks that, whether they're a one-day employee or a 20-year employee, everybody should feel valued. Everybody should be heard. All of this stuff should be occurring. You've got to allow people to be leaders. And when they're learning how to build those muscles, right, those leadership muscles, there's going to be missteps. That's going to happen. You as the current leader has to stand in there in the fire and get them through that. That's how it works. We don't have the luxury of saying, okay, you're a leader today, and that means now you know how to do it. That's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
Okay? Those muscles have to be developed.
So a couple things. I want to say hi to Strive Wellness Lounge here in Guthrie, Oklahoma. They're watching with us today. And then I want to answer Gigi's question, her comment, and she is right.
It's he. Huh? It's Greg. Go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, I just know this person. So
sorry, Greg. Investing in your people is number one indeed.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in a nonprofit, a for-profit, a publicly traded, a privately held. It can be in public service. Doesn't matter where you lead. Does not matter. If you're not investing in your people, you're going to mess the relationship up. And when you mess the relationship up, everything else falls apart. We go back, one of my favorite things to tell people, because people go through this big interview process, and then the person will be 9 months into the job, and they're like, well, that's not the person I hired. And I said, well, it's because you don't have realistic expectations, right? You as a leader needs to understand the day you hire somebody, that's the smartest you'll ever be in that person's eyes, okay? So if you go, put yourself in their shoes. When you're interviewing for a job, what version of you do you put out there? The absolute best version humanly possible, okay? So have realistic expectations, and that's why the interview process, the hiring process, the onboarding process, the training and development process, all of those things have to be a continuum, because if you just hire them and say, well, they're good to go, they're good enough to hire, so they ought to be able to do the job, that's crazy. You got to bring them along. So make sure that you understand, just like Greg says, your people are without question the single most important thing that you can invest in.
Well, and to that note, how many of you guys and gals watching this today played sports?
I know these two did.
Okay. So did your coaches invest in you? Did they train you? Did they hold you accountable to proper techniques? Did they push you? Did they give you a plan to get better in the weight room?
Yep. Yep.
I think all of us can honestly say every coach that I played for, even through college, it was very specific development along the way.
Yeah.
If you're not doing the same thing in your business, why?
Why? I mean,
it makes no sense.
I mean, we all need people. I mean, a lot of people trust us with their executive coaching. They trust us with their training. They trust us with our consulting services. And guess what Dave and I do? We have coaches.
Yep.
We have people that we talk to. I mean, it's all this stuff. You got to have that. I want to tell Stefan at Strive Wellness Lounge, thank you for the kind comments. We really appreciate that. It's been our pleasure to help you. Stefan, the owner of Strive Wellness Lounge, great business that's growing very actively. A lot of exciting things that are going to be announced about Strive Wellness coming in the future, very near future. But, that's our why, right? We like to work with businesses to help them do what? Create jobs. If you create jobs, what happens? It makes our country stronger. Two broken down old veterans, that's when we came together years ago.
That's what we said.
We said, well, we're too old and too broken down to serve anymore in the military. How can we help our country? Well, what drives the financial life of our country? Small business owners.
Fact.
So that's why we do what we do. We appreciate that, Stefan, very, very much. You're one of the good guys. We appreciate you.
Well, with that, thank you everybody for showing up today. We'll be here next Wednesday at 9 a.m. And with that, Dave and Phil, we are out of here.